We're still trying to cover all of these footnotes so we can finish the book. But these books, they always get updated. Yani, we can finish reading through all these footnotes and checking for things. If we read the book again, we're going to find something else to fix. And if we read it again and again and again, we're always going to find something else to fix. That's how it goes. So let's continue. SubhanAllah, we didn't record last week, so we missed some good information that I wanted to share with the people, but without repeating the entire lesson. So among what we covered, just brief recap here. Amongst what we covered here is this English word ambiguous that we're using for mutashabih. And this definition is here just to substantiate that the word works. It has the meaning we're looking for. Ambiguous, having two or more meanings. That's mutashabih. Yahtamilu awjuhan kathira. Bears more than one way. Susceptible to different interpretations. Also, is the meaning of mutashabih. So the ambiguous verses. If you just want to call them mutashabih, that's fine. Then also, we looked at some of the definitions of muhkam and mutashabih. Those definitions, we got them from where? From Al-Itqanu fi Ulumi al-Quran, which I hope that we will cover, inshallah. Yani, this section in particular, I intend to cover. Yani, the section of Al-Muhkam wal-Mutashabih in the book of Al-Itqan by Imam As-Suyuti. It is my intention to cover it with you soon, inshallah ta'ala, or at least part of it. As-Suyuti, he recorded different definitions in there for the Muhkam and Mutashabih verses. Amongst them is this one, Al-Muhkamu mastaqalla binafsih wal-Mutashabihu ma la yastaqillu binafsihi illa biraddihi ila ghayrih. Which means the decisive, the Muhkam, is what stands independently. Because that's the one that is the reference for the other verses. So it doesn't need to be referred back to something else. It's the independent one. And the mutashabih, the ambiguous, is ma la yastaqillu bi nafsihi, what does not stand independently. Illa, yani lakin, rather bi raddihi ila ghayrihi, it is referred to something else. That's what we learned. In meaning, this is what we have learned. Because we learned that, for example, you take the ayah, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arshi istawa, and you interpret it in accordance with the ayah, Laysa kamithlihi shay. Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arshi istawa, the word istawa can have over 10 meanings. It does have over 10 meanings in the Arabic language. So how do we know which way to direct the interpretation? We need to couple it with an explicit verse. This explicit verse, like Laysa kamithlihi shay, nothing is like him in any way, it will at least eliminate impossibilities. Even if it doesn't pinpoint the exact meaning, it will at least eliminate the impossible meanings. Like, for sure, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arshi istawa cannot mean that Allah ascended by moving in space, moving from one place to another place, ascending. That's impossible. Nor can it mean straightening up. Doesn't mean Allah straightened up. Nor can it mean becoming ripe. Doesn't mean that Allah ripened. Nor can it mean sat. It doesn't mean that Allah sat down. So, but what does it mean exactly? Still could mean that Allah dominates, or it could mean Allah preserves. So at the least, when we coupled the ambiguous verse with the decisive verse, we were able to eliminate some of the meanings. We mentioned also here that the Wahhabis, while on one hand they would deny ta'wil and say that it is deviance and it's misguidance and it's blasphemy, etc., they do make ta'wil for anything that's contrary to their established beliefs. Their established beliefs, such as their established belief is that Allah is over the throne, not that He's everywhere. So any verse that might seem to mean literally that Allah is everywhere, they will give it an interpretation. And their established belief is that Allah has two hands. So any verse that would attribute or mention for Allah the plural form of yad, they will interpret it not to mean at least three, and they will interpret it to mean two. Or like when Allah says, وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. Literally it says, He is with you wherever you are. They don't believe that Allah is literally with you wherever you are. They believe that Allah is over the throne. So if you ask them, how do you explain this ayah? They're going to say, don't you know? It means His knowledge. As if they're not contradicting themselves. They're going to look you right in your face, straight face, and say, this means knowledge. He is with you wherever you are means He knows about you wherever you are. Well, what's wrong with you? As if He's not contradicting Himself. Because they are professional gaslighters. Also, amongst what we covered last time is that the Quran has two types of verses, muhkam and mutashabih, explicit or decisive, and ambiguous. And we wanted to explain, we did explain what looks like in the Quran that there's an ayah in the Quran that tells us that all of the Quran is muhkam. Kitabun uhkimat ayatuh. A book whose verses are made decisive, have been made muhkam. So it appears that all of the Quran is muhkam. So how can we say some of it is muhkam and some of it is mutashabih? And there's another ayah that appears to say that all of the Quran is mutashabih. Kitabam mutashabiha, a mutashabih book. So what does this mean? Okay, so we're going to commit to saying that the Quran has two types of verses. Muhkam, decisive, and mutashabih, ambiguous. And when we are told that the verses of the Quran have been made muhkam, then in this case it means that they are perfect and clear of deficiency and clear of contradiction. So it means something different. And when it says in the other ayah that it's a mutashabih book, this means that the verses of the Quran resemble each other in truthfulness and in miraculousness. So it means something different here. Mutashabih here means it has its own explanation. Kitabam mutashabiha, a mutashabih book. Here mutashabih has its own explanation, and kitabun uhkimat ayatuh. The ihkam, the perfection of the verses, has its own meaning. None of that contradicts that the Quran is composed of two types of verses, muhkam and mutashabih. And then we saw other definitions that Imam As-Suyuti documented. That some said, Al-muhkamu ma wadaha ma'anahu wal-mutashabihu naqiduh. The decisive is what has clear meaning, and the ambiguous is its opposite. And some said, Al-muhkamu ma la yahtamilu min at-ta'wili illa wajhan wahida wal-mutashabihu mahtamala awjuha. The decisive is that which, concerning interpretation, only bears one meaning. So that means explicit. And the ambiguous, mutashabih, is that which bears various meanings. And this is the way our Shaykh defines the difference between muhkam and mutashabih in his book As-Siratul Mustaqim. So this statement, it is present in Al-Itqan, and it is the statement that the Shaykh deposited in his lovely book As-Siratul Mustaqim for defining the difference between the two types of verses. And here's another one that As-Suyuti logged. Al-muhkamu ma ta'wiluhu tanziluh wal-mutashabihu ma la yudra illa bit-ta'wil. The decisive, explicit, is that which its interpretation is clear from the expressions of its revelation. Its interpretation is clear from the expressions of its revelation. And the ambiguous is ma la yudra illa bit-ta'wil, that which is not known except by interpreting it by other than its apparent meaning. Ma la yudra, that which is not known illa, except bit-ta'wil, by interpreting it by other than its apparent meaning. And okay. Now here we are, starting with the next set of footnotes. This footnote 525 goes here. Making ta'wil. So let me read the sentence. Making ta'wil, that's alternative interpretation, yani explaining by other than what appears. Making ta'wil like the Batiniyyah and their likes. The Batiniyyah, those are the Allegorists. And their likes, like pseudo Sufis, fake Sufis. Yani they would take some verses that don't need a ta'wil or hadiths and give them a ta'wil. A ta'wil that leads to opposing the necessary matters of the religion is blasphemy. Yani doing it like the Batiniyyah do and like the fake Sufis do is blasphemy, and it makes one an atheist. So here's a footnote. Making ta'wil. For example, the allegorists, say that the salah mentioned in the Quran does not mean what is known, yani is not, they said that it is not what is known to the Muslims as the prayer that starts with Allahu Akbar and ends with Assalamu alaikum. They said rather it refers to following the Imam. Salah refers to following the Imam. So that's perversion there. What has to do with following an imam, the word salah? They picked a man among themselves and called him an imam and said that this is the meaning of salah, following the imam. They said that the rivers of honey in paradise mean wisdom, for example. That's blasphemy. By referring to meanings other than the apparent meanings, they have played with the religion. They are amongst the factions. They are amongst the factions who exaggerated in deviance and blasphemy. So they said that the rivers of paradise, that the rivers of honey in paradise mean wisdom. So that's a ta'wil. How does that mean wisdom? So this is a type of ta'wil. By referring to meanings other than the apparent meanings, they have played with the religion. They are among the factions who exaggerated in deviance and blasphemy, al-ghula, and they are not truly ascribed with Islam. And among them, there is a branch of the Shiites called al-Ismailiyah. Okay, so this group, they make ta'wil, but their ta'wil is not exactly like the ta'wil of the Wahhabis. It's different. It's ta'wil though. Wahhabis and other anthropomorphists, their ta'wil is to take some verses and hadiths of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam literally, and also to refer to weak narrations from the tabi'un and the followers of the tabi'in that have anthropomorphism in them. While these allegorists, on the other hand, they were, as you see, doing something else. They didn't have a goal of depicting Allah as a body. Really, what was their goal in all of this, saying salat means following the imam and river of honey means wisdom? Their goal behind all of this is to misguide a Muslim and to destroy Islam. They prey upon Muslims. You're going to see, we're going to read some of their story. Inshallah. Okay. So, we covered that footnote there. If you have a question, feel free. What year are they from? They are from around 200 something. The year 200 something. They started, not talking about Ismaili, I'm just talking about the Allegorists in general. Al-Batiniyyah. They're called Al-Batiniyyah. All right, free. Batiniyyah. Their goal is to misguide Muslims and to destroy Islam. They prey upon Muslims. Of course, you're going to have to be ignorant to be preyed upon by these people. But we're going to see what we have here, inshallah. Ignorant and naive too. So making ta'wil like the Batiniyyah and their likes, like the pseudo-Sufis, fake Sufis, is blasphemy. Here's a footnote. The early scholars' dispraise of ta'wil is not related to the ambiguous verses. Early scholars, they dispraised ta'wil, not because they were anthropomorphists, but because they were against the Batiniyyah. That's the ta'wil they were dispraising. They were referring to the Batiniyyah. Their tribulations appeared in the days of Al-Ma'mun. So that's around the time of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And they remain until the present day, although they are not as strong as they had been in the past at some times and places. And perhaps you may have seen some iterations of these, such as the so-called Nation of Islam, NOI. They are Batiniyyah, as well as the 5%ers who split off from them. What happened here? Their tribulation appeared under the management of a group of people. Abdullah, Abdullah ibn Maymun. Abdullah ibn Maymun al-Qaddah, who was a slave of Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq, who was a slave of Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq. That's one. Also, Muhammad al-Hussein. So, what are their names here? Abdullah ibn Muhammad al-Qaddah and Muhammad ibn al-Hussein. He had a famous nickname, Dandan. A group called the Jahabira, the Jahar Jaharbija, Al Jaharbija. I might be saying it wrong. This is Persian. They were like a club. Al Jaharbija. They were a club who they were with Dandan and Maymun ibn Dayasan. Ibn Dayasan. Who are these Al Jaharbija? I think it means, if I remember right, the young lads, the lads, or something like that. So they're like a gang, these ones. It's just a few of them, though, not many of them. So they're like a club or a gang, like their own brotherhood. Even with these ones they were cooperating with, they were their own clique. They're a clique. They had a name, so it's like they have a club. They all gathered in the prison of Al-Iraq and made this school, this way of algorithm. When they got out of prison, their call appeared, which that's what they had agreed to do. They developed a secret society while they were incarcerated in Al-Iraq and Al-Iraq. And their plan was that when they get out, they're going to go spread their false religion. And these were, by the way, men who had, they were descendants of Persians. And they had hard feelings towards Islam. And they had inclinations towards the religion of their ancestors. So when they formed this secret society, they formed code words. These code words, they are Islamic words themselves. The words are Islamic words, but they assign new meanings to those words. So that when they speak amongst each other, they understand what they are saying. So they developed a code. The first one to propagate this call was Muhammad ibn al-Husayn, the one famous as Dandan. He started his call with the Kurds of the mountain of Tuz until a group from the people of Badin answered his call. Then Maymun ibn Daysan, he went to the western lands and claimed to be a descendant of Aqil ibn Abi Talib. So Aqil ibn Abi Talib, one of the relatives of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He claimed to be a descendant of Aqil ibn Abi Talib, but he was lying. Uh, when a group of people answered him, he claimed to be from the children of Muhammad ibn Ismail ibn Ja'far as-Sadiq. Yani, he has taken more than one alias. So these guys, they have bad intentions for the Muslims. Allah Ta'ala sallatahum ala ba'd al-mu'mineen. Allah Ta'ala unleashed these devils, human devils, on some of the believers. And they were able to take some of the believers out of their religion. Like I can give you just kind of an idea. Yeah, I can keep reading and tell you, but imagine, fraternity, a fraternity like in college, for a college frat. What if there were Muslim is interested in this? So he wants to get involved in there. What they're going to do to him? They're not going to say, "Oh, you're a Muslim. You want to be in our brotherhood? Okay, we're going to respect. We're going to respect everything about you and your religion." Now, what they're going to do, if they can get him to drink, they're going to get him to drink. If they can get him some girls, they're going to get him some girls, etc. Like this. They're going to really be pulling him out of his religion little by little. This is how those people work. Any person who wants to discourage another person from being a Muslim, amongst what he will do is to give him his pleasures. He'll tell that woman, "No, you don't have to cover. Don't cover. No, you can wear the thong too and let it show. And now look, here's some wine. Here. You want some pork? I got a man for you." Like this. So this one, he started his call, this one, Dandan, he started his call with the Kurds of the mountain of Tuz, and then he got some followers from the people of Badin. Then Maymun ibn Daysan, he went to the western lands, he took an alias. He claimed to be a descendant of Aqil ibn Abi Talib. When he got some followers, when a group of people answered him, then he claimed to be from the children of Muhammad ibn Ismail ibn Ja'far as-Sadiq. So he claimed to be a descendant of Ja'far as-Sadiq. A group of people, a group of ignorant people who did not know that he died without any children, accepted that from him. Muhammad ibn Ismail, they didn't know that he died without any children. So he told them, "I am amongst the descendants of Muhammad ibn Ismail." Hmm. Among his followers was a man named Hamdan Qarmat. And he called the people of Al-Bahrain. So what they did, they split up and went to different areas. But they stayed linked. They stayed in sync with each other. They had almost like a pyramid scheme or a hierarchy. They had someone in charge and sending people to this area or that area. If something will happen to someone in charge, another one will move up. All of this to destroy Islam. Among his followers was Abu Sa'id al-Janabi, and the group responded to his call, so he got some followers. So you know how the pyramid scheme goes? Like you have some company, they're supposedly selling something, they send out guys. So each one, he gets his team, like there's a management, and then they get some guys under them, and they're like managers. And those managers, they need to have guys under them. So this man, Hamdan Qarmat, he called the people of Bahrain and he got followers. Among his followers was Abu Sa'id al-Janabi. And then he got followers. A group responded to his call. Then Ibn Daysan went to the west and changed his name and lineage. West is like, in those old days, West is like Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. I don't know exactly where he went though. He went to the west and he changed his name and his lineage, so he has an alias. He said, I am Ubaydullah ibn al-Husayn, ibn Muhammad, ibn Ismail, ibn Ja'far as-Sadiq. And then some people there, they answered his call. And from them came a man called Abu Hatim. He went to the land of Ad-Daylam, and a group of people there answered his call. And they have other heads and callers to their school, and some have written books for them. He said, I don't recall any of these people are a part of the 73 sects. They're not. We did go over this though, but they're not part of the 73. These are outside of the 73. And we said that here. I think here. It's not here. Okay, so Hakada. Their school, the madhab of these deviant people spread in the days of Al-Mu'tasim. He is a Khalifa. Any questions so far? Now the next footnote. The next footnote goes here. The sentence is, the second type is the ambiguous verse. It may not be immediately clear. Okay, we know that well now. Footnote, Allah revealed the Quran with different features to differentiate between the slaves. The people are of two groups. One group who would interpret and apply those verses correctly and thereby win, and the other group would misinterpret and apply them incorrectly and thereby lose. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says, يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. He misguides by it many, and he guides by it many, it being the Quran. The wisdom behind the ambiguous verses is to test the slaves and to try them. The wisdom behind the ambiguous verses is to test the slaves and try them. For those who take those verses as they should be taken, there is reward. Thus, not all of the people are guided by the Quran. The fact is that Allah guides whomever He willed. Yes, and this ayah is a testament to the truthfulness of the Quran. The Quran is 100% true. Even if you don't know how to interpret an ayah here or there, or me too. The Quran is true.
So hard to say.
Wa alaikum assalam.
About them people, hold on, sorry. About them people that reads they read the translation, they think that's the plan, and they just take their own interpretation of what it may be. Oh, that's when Ramadan comes. And people, I read the plan. I'm talking to Muslim. I read the plan. Oh yeah, this and that, this and that. And they take that. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's true. But the Quran is only in Arabic.
When you tell them that, it was, well, it's in English, so I can understand it. So you tell them, like, no, it's like you said, it's ambiguous ayat.
No, I would tell them Quran is only in Arabic, and they're going to say how I'm supposed to read it. I'm going to say to them, learn Arabic.
There you go.
So if he says, in the meantime, what do you suggest I do? I'll say, learn from a teacher who can explain the meanings of the verses to you.
Like,
You're welcome. But this is a testament to how honest the Quran is, completely honest. Allah told us He misguides many by the Quran. This tells us there will be people who look into the Quran and they go astray. وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَبِحَمْدِهِ